Ukraine carried out a secret operation to destroy the Russian Oreshnik system. Meanwhile, Russians are recruiting children from the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine and sending them to the front lines. My name is Albina Pidhirnyak. Here are the latest news for you. Last night, drones and missiles attacked the Orel thermal power plant in Russia. Footage from eyewitnesses next.
Mom, thermal power plant was blown up.
What is it?
You can see that I took a picture. Thermal power plant, I'm afraid. The thermal power plant was blown up there. Mom,
Come here. Come here.
Drones reached the Vladimirskaya power substation, which has a capacity of 550 kilowatt in Russia's Vladimir region.
Here, another one is flying. Do we need to move away, or what? Where did he come from? This one hit normally, flew there. Now, along the way, there will be no electricity. Substation on Energetica. That's what it's called, guys. This is called good morning. It's still flying somewhere. That's what I got to. Before that, there are grids at the substation. I didn't touch it. I got to the nets before that, somewhere else. But this one got into the net. Probably, he got into the net. He flew up. The fire started. Yes. There was more than one shot.
The head of Ukraine's security service, Vasyl Maluk, stated that Ukraine destroyed one of the so-called Oreshnik launchers on Russian territory. It happened in 2023, before Putin even spoke publicly about the Oreshnik system.
We will not tell you details today. As I have already said, among our defense forces, this was done by the Security Service of Ukraine, the main intelligence directorate and the Foreign Intelligence Service. The destruction was 100%. It was a very successful operation, but it was not advertised in any way at that time. This was reported exclusively to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the President of Ukraine, and several presidents of other countries also knew about it. We did it all quite successfully. There was 100% confirmation. This was at the moment when the N-name or Oreshnik was not yet widely known, used, and the Russians at that time did not particularly threaten it. If I'm not mistaken, we had it in the summer. The summer before last, we performed the same operation.
The national police exposed the leaders of UnArmia cell in the Donetsk region where Russians were training soldiers from Ukrainian children. Under the guise of military patriotic education, children were systematically subjected to military training, including drill exercises, handling weapons, learning combat tactics and ideological indoctrination aimed at fostering hostility toward Ukraine.
Ukrainian children under occupation began to be taught to shoot as soon as they crossed the threshold of school. They were told that they were the future heroes of the so-called newly created People's Republics. But in fact, they were preparing for war. Children born in Ukrainian Donetsk and nearby settlements were gradually turned into soldiers of the occupying army. With the beginning of the full-scale invasion, children from the newly occupied territories of Kherson and Zaporizhia regions got into this terrible car.
Almost immediately after the capture of the Donetsk region, the Russian Federation began to actively work with our Ukrainian children. We are talking about a children's and youth public movement, which positions itself as military patriotic, but in fact is one of the main tools for promoting mobilization and military training of young people in the Russian Federation. First, games, marches, slogans about a great homeland, and then work with weapons and training in battle tactics. The project was called Youth Army.
Now I know how to disassemble, assemble a magazine, disassemble, assemble a machine gun and throw grenades.
Operatives of the Department of Strategic Investigations and investigators of the main investigation department of the police documented the entire hierarchy of those involved in this organization in the Donetsk region, established the names of the leaders and collected evidence of their crimes. We have every reason to say, this organization has nothing to do with classical scout movements or Soviet pioneering. This is a tool for militarization and Russification of children in Donetsk and nearby settlements, which forms hostility to their own state.
The criminal case materials include in particular an example of an 18-year-old resident of Horlivka who as a child in 2014 fell under the influence of this system. In 2023, with his mother's consent, he joined the movement and later enlisted in the Russian armed formations. The young man was killed in June 2024 during combat operations.
One of the illustrative stories is about an 18-year-old native of Horlivka, born during the Free Ukrainian Donetsk region. At the time of the occupation in 2014, the boy was 8. In May 2023, with the written consent of his mother, he joined the Youth Army, later joined the ranks of the Russian Army, in particular the 132nd Motorized Rifle Horlivka Brigade, created on the basis of local gangs. He served there until June 2024. Just a few months after mobilization, he dies on the outskirts of Horlivka in battles with those whom he should have called his own. And such stories, unfortunately, are not isolated. Publications with photos of other guys appear on the network.
He was sent to the Zaporizhia direction. He began his service as an ordinary soldier as a sniper. I worked a lot at the headquarters of the regiment, helped the guys a lot, commanded.
According to Article 51 of the Geneva Convention, the occupying power has no right to force persons under its so-called protection to serve in its armed forces. Even propaganda encouraging voluntary entry is prohibited. But Russia does not interfere with international law. The creation and activities of the Youth Army is not just an ideological project, it is a war crime.
It should ensure reliable heredity in the development of the country for decades to come. To raise and educate young generations who will strengthen the power of Russia.
The Youth Army's development strategy until 2030 left no doubt about the scale of the plan. The document talks about the need to cover all children with ideological processing, as well as the involvement of at least 10% of Youth Army members in military service. Currently, there are 15 million minors in this structure, and the official decision of the government of the Russian Federation directly defines this movement as a mechanism for training conscripts, in particular in the occupied territories. That is, we are talking about an open violation of the Geneva Convention, covered with slogans about patriotism.
We have established evidence of the involvement of a number of individuals in undermining the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine through militarization and ideological influence on children within the Donetsk center. Police investigators served notices of suspicion to 10 people, including the head of the regional branch of the Youth Army in the Donetsk region, his deputy, the heads of city centers in Makiivka, Kurovsk, and Tauris, the head of the local headquarters of the Young Guard, Youth Army, as well as those responsible for recruitment, training programs, and logistics. Their actions are qualified, in particular, by justifying, recognizing the aggression of the Russian Federation as legitimate and glorifying its participants. All these persons also appear in the proceedings as members of an organized group that committed war crimes.
We have engaged specialists to conduct forensic linguistic and semantic textual examinations. They confirmed the presence of calls for violence, hate speech, and war propaganda in the speeches and publications of the Youth Army leadership. In addition, experts have identified hidden meanings and messages aimed at forming attitudes in children that justify violence and aggression.
The organization Youth Army is already officially recognized as an instrument of militarization of children. Since 2022, this movement has been on the sanctions lists of the European Union, the United States, and Ukraine. The police continue large-scale work to collect evidence under the procedural guidance of the Prosecutor General's office.
Our task is to identify and bring to justice everyone who organized the activities of the Youth Army in the occupied territories of the Donetsk region, from recruiters to those who forced children to wear enemy military uniforms. We are talking about hundreds of people.
This is very important for us. Thousands of children from the Donetsk region have already passed through this system. The involvement of minors in hostilities is a crime that has no statute of limitations. Therefore, we continue to work so that no one who dragged them into this propaganda machine escapes responsibility.
Thank you for watching our news and for supporting Ukraine. Together, we will win. Glory to Ukraine.